Is there someone in your life you just can't get along with because of politics? Maybe you've agreed to avoid the topic entirely. One UNC professor says it doesn't always have to be this way. He wrote a book about moral outrage. Here's our conversation. Joining me now is Kurt Gray. He's a professor of psychology and neuroscience at UNC Chapel Hill and author of the book Outraged: Why We Fight About Morality and Politics and How to Find Common Ground. Professor Gray, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
How did the political climate of today inspire this book?
Well, we've been divided for some time and increasingly divided if you look at the trends. And so I started this book 4 years ago when there was lots of division, and there's still division today. And so this book was really inspired by a desire to understand why we fight and how to maybe fight less.
You say that liberals and conservatives share the same mind. Can you help us understand what you mean by that? The same moral mind. Let me rephrase that. Share the same moral mind.
You bet. So even if liberals and conservatives vote for different policies, at the heart, we're still all concerned about protecting ourselves and our family and society from harm. And so we're all fixated on the question of how best to protect ourselves. And that's what underlies our strongest moral convictions. And when we fight, it's because we're focused on different victims, we're focused on different ways to prevent harm, and we're disagreeing about how best to protect ourselves and society.
Now, this book explores not only people's differences, but also how to get to the middle ground and to be able to all get along in this very divisive time. And, understanding the other side, of course, requires putting yourself in their shoes. You say the question to ask yourself is, what harms does the other side see? So how do you see that answer to that question playing out on the left and the right in this political atmosphere that we are in right now?
So the first thing people can do is just ask themselves that question, right? The other side is not trying to burn it all down. They're not trying to destroy America. They're trying to protect themselves in some way. And so try to figure out what that is. And in our conversations, what you can do is you can ask for the stories that drive people's political convictions and tell your own stories. So my research shows that in conversations about morality, facts fall flat. And instead, what we really appreciate, what helps us understand, are stories about personal suffering. So you might be a gun owner because you used a gun to defend yourself once, to protect yourself. That goes a lot further in a conversation, saying that, than just parroting back some statistic.
How do you teach this to kids? Because, they might come to you and say, what so-and-so said is wrong, but what so-and-so said they think is right. And so how do you navigate that with young minds?
It's really hard. It's a great question. It's funny, right? Because we teach our children, right? This is the right thing to do. This is the wrong thing to do. But we also teach them to have respect for other people. We live in a pluralistic democracy where other viewpoints are crucial, where compromise is crucial. And so I think it's challenging, but it's possible, right? So you can say, we think that this is the right thing to do, and here's why. But we can also respect why others might take a different perspective, because here's what they're concerned about protecting. Here's what they're focused on. So you don't necessarily need to agree with other folks, but I think it is important to make your kids see them as fellow human beings who are also trying to do their best in the world.
Yeah, well said. Hey, let's leave it on this. What's one thing that you want somebody to take away from watching this interview or reading your book?
I think probably the most practical tip is if you're going into a conversation about morality and politics, if you're trying to win, then you've already lost. No one has some stat thrown at them and says, you know what, I guess I was totally wrong about abortion or immigration or taxes. Instead of trying to win, have conversations to try to understand. And that's the best way we can all move forward as a country.
I love that. We'll leave it at that. Professor Gray, author of the new book, Outraged, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much.